Okay, I think this is where so we are going to continue on module 2, which is section 4, AWS billing and cost management. So this is the section where we had reached last time. So we'll quickly go through these slides. So it says your AWS billing and cost management, right, is the service that you use to uh, pay your AWS bill, monitor your usage, and budget your cost. So there are three things, right? One is the regular bills that you get every month. So that is called the invoices. And then you monitor your usage means regularly you keep on checking what are you billed for, even before you're billed. So the invoice will be generated next month, but right now if I want to know how much is the current cost, how much is the meter running, then you have to know in advance, right? Because it can be a huge cost. And budgeting your cost is basically even before you start anything, you come up with your own plan as to how much uh, you know you want to spend, right? So you want to keep a budget of maybe $10, $100, or whatever expenditures limit you want. So based on the budget you can get alerts, and some actions can be done for something like one can stop the machines automatically in case if it goes above the budget, or we can stop the services that is running. uh, but remember this, you can only stop something which is which for services which are configured for pay as you go, which means pay for as much as you use. So if I'm using for 1 second, I pay for 1 second, or if it is an hourly cost, then I pay for every hour. And the cost will, the moment the service stops, the definitely the bill will stop. But there are certain costs which is like the flat cost. The flat cost is even if something is stopped, it is still being charged because it is occupying a space in the cloud. So so you have to be aware of that. It is like the house where electricity is pay as you go. But if you are staying on rent, so your rent is a flat cost, right? So so your electricity bill, if you stop using it, definitely your bill, your things will stop immediately. And of course we do not set any budgets over there, but here we can using the budgets we can act on pay as you go services. But if there are but the rent, now whether you stay or you don't stay, you have to pay the rent, right? So that is a flat cost. So in the same way, the machine is stopped, you still have to pay for it. If you have stored any files on the cloud, then you have to still have to pay because it is occupying the space. Only when you delete stuff, you remove things out of the cloud. Okay, so if you have a machine, then mostly it is a virtual machine, which is your EC2. So and that is nothing but a software. So for deleting a machine for a cloud, it means as good as deleting a virtual machine, which is as good as deleting a software. Okay. So the first thing that you see in billing is sorry, is the billing and cost management dashboard, where you're getting this graphical view and kind of a breakup of all the services over here. So if you look into the billing section, so let's say home billing, let's go home section. So you're getting a kind of a dashboard, right? So dashboard, sorry. So you're getting a rough last month. I spent, this is already a spent money, right? It is a point 0.5, and a month to date, this is the bill has not been generated as yet. And Yeah, and this is the forecast. So forecast is always based on what is the current expenditure, right? So if it is calculated on what is an average daily cost that I'm spending. So based on that, this forecast is will keep on changing. It was kind of point 0.1 dollar yesterday, and today it is 0.09 because I did not use it, and this will keep on reducing. If I don't use it, it will come down to zero, the forecast. So if you click here, you will get the bill details. We have seen already, right? We get for each services that we used. So this was for the month of July, August. So in the month of July, I had a huge expenditure, and if you see, a lot of money was I was charged, but fortunately, I was saved, and AWS was kind enough to like they deducted minus, you see, minus, I was charged $12, then they minused it, and so they did a lot of waiving for me, and so that way I was able to um, you know save myself from paying the bills, because I didn't know a lot of things, like I didn't know the stop machine will be costing so much. I just didn't know this. And this is billing details by account. So you see, this is my bill. So now the thing is, every time you may think that your account is the only account that you're managing, so why we are showing it separately? It is not true. You can manage multiple accounts through a service called AWS organizations. So you need to remember this organizations services. So account is basically, it refers to the root account. Okay. So your root account can manage many other accounts through the service called AWS organization. So we will have a look at that uh, over here. So this is kind of as I told you, it's a billing dashboard that we saw, and let's see what else we can see. So this is the invoices, right? So you generate invoice every month. So even invoices are always generated in the future. So I have one invoice generated for August month, right? Not for August month, actually it is for July month, but this invoice is for is for July month, and I think they are giving the details over here, 37 rupees, but I was waived off even that later. So then we come to the credit section. So credits is something which uh, is like I have an advance money given by AWS themselves to spend. So I collected these credits, $25 by attending a seminar. So I got this credit, and out of which you know $12.42 was saved. And but lately, due to so much of waiving and everything, they have charged my credits also for one of the services. So I told them, why you're charging my credits if you are waiving it off? Either you waive it off, or either you charge me. If you're charging me, then use my credits. So they realized that they have not waived me, but they have taken the money from my credit. So then they retracted back and gave me back my credit. And when they gave me back my credit, they gave me $30. So they gave me more than what I had earlier. So right now it seems like I have $42 of credit over here, and that is what I can spend. You see that? So active credits are 2. So I can pay the bills up to $42 from this credits. It will automatically be deducted. So that is the advantage of credits, and you should try to get credits by attending wherever these credits are available, by doing some project. If you can get some credits, or by attending a seminar you can get some credit, then you should go ahead and do it. So cost and usage reports. So you can create reports out of your, you want to show a report to your in any organization. So you could use this. So how do we go? So let's see. So you can create different kinds of reports. So it says download usage report. Okay, so let's see. This is I'm using a particular service, right? I did create some report earlier. I'm trying to find it. Anyways, one of the reports I had downloaded, and so let's. I think you can have a look at it. So this is like a daily cost report, starting from July 1st, and it is giving me on July 1st I spent $0.08. Then on July 12th I spent $4. On July 13th I spent $7. So it kind of giving me an idea about how much is my daily expenditure, starting from July 1st. So and that is kind of giving me this is kind of an Excel report, but you can also get a graphical view. So Cost Explorer is one place where it gives you a graphical view, and if you launch this, you will get this part, the Launch Explorer over here. So you can just start it and see. So Cost Explorer, whenever you see the word Explorer, think about graphs. Okay, means something is showed in graphical view. So you have Windows Explorer, then you're looking at. So this is your Windows Explorer, right? So this is also a graphic kind of a tree view, right? So on the left hand side you have a tree. There's a root node. There's a a leaf nodes, and on the right hand side in each leaf, whatever is content is there, that's what you see. So in this you're seeing a bar graph. So there are different types of graphs, and Windows Explorer showing you a tree graph, and here you're seeing a bar graph. So here you see on this particular day I had my $9 spent. So you're getting a graphical view of the expenditure. So I had created this report, July test report. So how do we? So it says my current month cost is $0. Forecasted month end cost is 0.56 dollars, and it has reduced 99% over last month. Means I was if I was spending 100 hours last month, right now I'm spending 1 hour. So that is the reduction in my usage. Okay, so reports basically, you know, you can create report based on certain parameters, right? You can say I want to see a report for all the for a particular service, or for a month wise, or or as per. So here it is kind of giving you different types of reports which AWS has itself created. So if there is some data, you will have a look at this reports. So reports can be created based on whatever parameters that you want to look for. How much was the utilization this month? How much was the cost of EC2 this month? How much was the account wise billing? So you can create reports whatever you cannot see through Cost Explorer. So Cost Explorer is, as I told you, is a graphical view, right? Now it is giving you a particular kind of view. So you see in July month, so blue is saying EC2. green one is glue. You can see it's written over here. This is the taxed amount, and this is the S3 cost. This is the Kinesis cost. So definitely I will say, Arey, why EC2 is costing so much? Did I use EC2? I created only one machine. But remember, it is not only you who are creating the machine. There are services which are managing, which are managed service. So managed services usually will create machines on their own, and you will be charged for that also. So unknowingly, if there are any machines created by any services, you will be charged for that. So so here it says EC2 I spent 0.01 dollars in the month of May. Then month of June, EC2, then I spent $0.19 in the month of July, and then total was 0.20. So ideally, in your company, when you're using a lot of services and lot of people are using it, you need a proper breakdown and an ability to showcase things. Somebody should be able to judge whether we should go ahead with this cost, or whether we have to reduce it, or whether we have to do anything. You need this report, so you have to get familiarized with this reports over here. So cost explorer is a graphical view. Reports is like your documentation based on whatever report, or based on whatever parameters you select. And I told you budgets is what? Budget is basically setting a limit for how much you want to spend, and based on that, if you want to take some actions, like stop the machine or stop the services, you will be stopped, and your pay as you go services will be stopped to be billed. But if there is any flat cost involved, as I told you, like a machine which is stopped, it's still charged. A machine which is running is pay as you go, but machine which is stopped is still you're having a cost for this cost for storing it. So whatever files are there, whatever machines are there, you are still charged until the time you delete it. So always remember to delete the resource as soon as possible, even if it is not in use. So here I have created a budget of $1. If you see, there's a $1 budget, and some actions have failed over here for some reason. And we can create a budget over here. So some of you must have already seen this. So I'm creating a cost budget, and then I'm setting for every month, starting this month August. And this is a recurring budget, means this budget will be applied for every frequency, whatever frequency I've given a frequency of months, right? Every month I want to set a budget of not to spend more than $2, let's say. So if I don't want to spend more than $2, I give the budget. I say this is my $2 budget. I give us some name so that I can understand what budget I'm looking at. So there may be different budgets you can create, and you can add an alert threshold, means you can be sent an email or something. So if the 80% of the budget has reached, means $1.60 is reached, you send an email address to me, let's say. So something like that, I can set an alert over here, so that I will know if the AWS will send me an alert to this email and say, see, 80% is covered, what do you want to do? So I can go back and do something if I want. So if I do this, and then you can add another alert threshold over here, means another threshold is like a limit. Okay, so you can add another limit to condition, that if it is 70%, then do this, if it is 80%, then do this, something like that. So I right now just set review the errors below. Okay, what are the errors? Okay, I have to specifically type. So I'm saying, let's say I'm not saying 80%, I'm saying when it is 90%, you inform me. And then I click next, and it says action, right? So action, as I told you, I can choose to stop the machine in case if my budget is reaching $2. So I have to have a IAM role defined, which will have access to stop, because this stopping is done by AWS, right? So AWS should have the power to stop your machine on your behalf. So you need to give permissions for that, and that is how we have to have a role which will do that. So which role we should be? So we'll choose AWS service role for support. And if you don't want to use this role, you can create a role. Okay, IAM role. So role is a identity which does not which tries to impersonate you. So it will try to act on your behalf. It is not somebody that it represents it, but it kind of impersonates for the time being. Whatever account is being operated under that account, this role will get operated. So these roles are usually used even across services. Let's say the web server wants to update some data into the database, then you will not be manually doing it, right? So the web server, some program will be putting something in the database. So some IAM role has to be given permission to do that action of storing it in the database. So this is all the time required. So let's say I define this role and I'm saying action stop. So action stop automatically instances to stop for EC2 or RDS. So there's one area for sure which they have defined is EC2 or RDS. But let's say if you want to delete something, then what do? You want to delete something, then you create a policy. So policy is nothing but permission. So always remember this word. So policy equals permission. So permission can be, we had seen this policy right in the, I think, first lecture. We can say S3 disable, or S3 I'm not sure if we can, how do you delete? I've not seen the delete part anytime, but I have a feeling you should be able to do something either S3 delete, automatic delete through this permissions. I don't think it will be done. You can either enable it or disable it. Deletion, you have to run some program to delete it, something like a lambda function, and I'm not sure how do you trigger that using service attaching a SP2 defines a guardrail for what actions account within the OU can do. Let me see, can we delete AWS resources using policy? I don't think so. You need some program to run which will actually do the deleting. So yeah, I don't think you can delete automatically from the policy. You have to run some program like a lambda function, which will kind of actually do the deletion. So here the policies also will be only be able to stop your services, and the actual deletion somehow you need to. So this is what you can do. Let's say if I wanted to delete, okay, how do I delete it, when something's happened? So what you can do, this policy, you can say S3 is disabled, right? So whenever this S3 is so this is how you can architect it. So this is a kind of a technique, one of the techniques you can say. So whenever this is disabled, I will trigger, let's say, so I can have SN has been sent, means a notification, let's say, for example. Okay, so notification is just think of it like an SMS or something. Somebody, you're notifying something. So SNS is notifying. So the SMS will probably notify somebody on the other end. So let's say it is notifying. This notification will trigger a lambda function. Now lambda function will be written in, let's say, Java or Python or Node.js. So it can be anything. And in this program, you can say delete S3. or you can say delete all my resources. You can program it over here in the lambda function. This is what you can do, and this is how the lambda function is actually been executed. And what is triggering it, this fellow notification is triggering it. And who is sending the notification? S3 is, this policy will disable it, and the moment S3 is disabled, it will immediately send a trigger. So trigger is like switching on something, so that SNS will get the message, okay, S3 is disabled. So you can have different types of messages, right? S3 disabled, S3 enabled, you can have triggers for everything inside AWS. So whenever anything is triggered in AWS, you can take some action, something. The best architecture is use lambda function. So lambda function will create whatever, if it has to run this Java program, it will create the machine automatically to run the program, and it will also delete the machine when it is completed running the program. So you're paying only so you're paying only for the time the program is running. So you are not actually creating a machine, right? So lambda, and that's why since you are not creating the machine, lambda is a serverless managed service. It is managed by AWS, yes, but it is also serverless, where you are not creating the machine. Lambda itself is managing the process of creating the machine for your requirement. So your requirement is run the Java program or run the Python function, whatever it is, or run the Node.js program. Okay, so remember this architecture. This is one of the most important architectures you're going to see in AWS all over, in every project. Okay, whenever I want to take some action, I want to call lambda function. And how do I trigger lambda function? Maybe I can use SNS. And the who I can how an SNS, how do I trigger SNS is based on what status is happening. So your STEM status is generated, then here you're triggering it, and you're actually taking the action part. Okay, so based on what status is there in your AWS, whatever you want to do, you want to stop a network, you want to stop a service, these things will be used all over the AWS, even CloudWatch. So CloudWatch is a service which is monitoring what? It is monitoring services, right? So I'm just moving little bit away from the billing part, because this is such an important thing, and which I felt I should explain, let you all know, because you all should be able to tell somebody this is how you can do it. So CloudWatch also, whenever some type of CloudWatch event happens, let's say something you realize your utilization is very high, and utilization is very high means the machine is very loaded, and there are 10,000 users certainly using the machine. So you set a trigger, and based on this trigger an action can be taken, and usually this is used by by CloudWatch, load balancers. So all these fellows on this one end, they trigger something, and here you can scale it also. You can auto scaling feature will get will be taken. Auto scaling will happen on the action part. So I hope you understand status, trigger, action. These are my words just for you to understand. But on the top level, this is the crux of everything. Status, some status is getting generated on the AWS. Then you trigger using the mechanism of SNS notification, and based on the trigger you call you associate a lambda function. So lambda function can be configured to be connected to SNS. Now how do you do that? You need to do your hands-on some kind of a simple hands-on practicals for this which will simulate this. So I hope this part is understood. So my idea was based on my policy, I can set a particular status for the particular service, and based on that, I can trigger a SNS. And SNS, based on SNS, I can call a Lambda function. Basically, I wanted to delete everything, right? So that is the reason. So let's say I want to stop the machine. So stop the machines, you still have to pay for the stop machine. Okay, in which region? So this is if I'm setting if I'm stopping the machine, then for every region I have to set a budget, because it is not letting me uh, say all the machines, right? No instances found in this region, so it's not letting me choose. And I can stop RDS also. RDS is your relational database services. It is a managed service of AWS to create relational databases. And so let's say stop an IAM policy, select an IAM policy. Is there anything stop or something? There was one of the, I don't remember that. Stop is not there. There's something, one of the policies which would have stopped um, the services. I cannot find it. Uh, but the idea is, once you set this action and you move forward, then it will stop. Right now, I don't have any instances, so that is what the budgets are used for. So remember, so one is your reports, cost and usage reports, and the other thing is your budgets, okay, and the third thing is your cost explorer. So cost explorer is a graphical view. Budget is a actions to be taken based on the budget that you set, and cost and usage report is reports that you want to generate based on whatever parameters you want to look out for. So that is what AWS budget is, AWS cost and usage report is, and AWS cost explorer is. So this is your cost explorer, right? Graphical view. And you're seeing an example of reports over here, which is generated. So you'll have to basically play around with the billings and get what you need, especially if you're managing the billing if you're responsible to manage billing in the company, then definitely you have to be familiarized with all this. So last time we had also gone through AWS support plans, right? So support plans, there was standard plan, enterprise plan, and business plan. So we have already gone through that. So in the enterprise plan, we have a technical account manager, and we definitely get all the 36 checkpoints of trusted advisor, and we get a support concierge, right? A special person, a team which will be dedicated to us. So all these plans are there: basic support, developer support, business support, enterprise support. So when we are creating a free tier, we usually go for basic support, right? So we have some billing questions or something, then we can reach out for the support center. And so we have service health dashboard, right? Service health dashboard gives you the health dashboard of the entire AWS services. So as you move forward with the next service, developer, business, enterprise, the costing will also increase. because the enterprise will give you, they can respond to critical emergencies within 15 minutes, right? So that is one of the biggest advantage, and business support can respond to your emergencies within 1 hour, and developer support will take 24 hours to respond. So based on what plans you're taking, you will accordingly get that kind of support. Uh, but if it is a simple production, problem, like you need to restart your production or something which is not an emergency, then that response time is 1 hour for business and enterprise. So they have this kind of questions which we had seen last time. uh, you know um, so remember the different types of plans. So here you are seeing critical. So critical means the response time will be 15 minutes, right? And that is available only in enterprise plan. But urgent means production issues, start and stop 1 hour or less, So business, and that is available only in business plan or enterprise plan. Otherwise, nobody will come to respond. If it is high, then 4 hours or less. So how do you know whether something is critical, urgent, or high? It will depend on whoever is raising the ticket, right? So somebody from the company says, some admin is there and saying this is a critical thing, they have to report to you. Somebody has to join you and solve the issue within 15 minutes, or not within 15 minutes, but respond within 15 minutes. Resolution ultimately depends on how much time it takes to resolve the problem, right? So, and normal means 12 hours response time you will get. So in developer plan, you will only get, you can only raise normal tickets and low tickets, so the response time will be 12 hours or 24 hours. So last time we had already seen the pricing calculator, where we calculated and estimated, and two different costs which we had looked at was total cost of ownership and return of investment. Um, So total cost of ownership refers to a comparison of the cost of on-premises cost versus cloud cost. So this cost is, the total cost of ownership is determined when you want to go into the cloud. Even before you have you have gone inside the cloud, your company wants to make a decision to go into the cloud. What is the first cost it will look at? It will look at total cost of ownership. How much does it cost me if I have 4 machines in my on premises? How much will it cost for me the same 4 machines inside the cloud, right? And then you have to look at the cost comparison. So you must have already bought the 4 machines, and now you want to move in the cloud, means you have already spent the money, and that so you will be calculating the benefits in a different way. It depends on how the company wants to calculate it, right? How to they will say, I've already spent for 4 machines, so why should I consider as a savings cost for cloud? Cloud is an additional cost for me. So in that case, you can look at many other costs. Also is the maintenance cost, right? How much is the cost of maintenance? Is every time you're hiring a maintenance people to maintain these machines, you're paying some rents, electricity, and everything. So how much is the cost over here for doing the same over here? And over the period of time, the cost of cloud will reduce. So initially the cost of cloud may look high, because there is a the on-premises investment you have already done. So over the period of time, let's say 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, you will definitely see that the cloud cost is reducing, and over the period of time, you don't have a requirement for your on-premises servers, because those servers are going to become old, right? And then you have to do away with them, or you have to create a new one. So definitely moving towards cloud, transitioning towards cloud is a good choice, where you're saving on all these headaches of buying the machine and managing the machine. Over the period of time, at some point they will become old, and cloud never becomes old, right? They constantly updated, and you're only paying for the time that you're running the machines, and you get the best of best machines, best of best maintenance engineers. So moving to the cloud is not a short-term solution. It is never should be a short-term solution. If it is a short-term solution, then cloud is not the solution only. Maybe you just do something. The short-term solution could be something like a hybrid solution. Let's say I don't have enough space in my on premises. For the short time, I will create some machines, run some of my programs, and come out of my cloud. So I'm using cloud on a need basis whenever I need, and I come out. I'm not having a transition plan in that case. But if I am having a transition plan means how do I do away with all my cost in my on premises? How do I reduce the cost in the next 3 years? So from the business angle, they all this definitely makes sense. Sorry, I need to have water actually. Okay, so let's do the knowledge check now. Now that we have seen everything, no, we've not seen everything in billing. Yeah. So billing, as I told you, we maybe that different types of billing, savings plan billing. If you see on the left hand side, resort billing, dedicated host. So what is a dedicated host? Dedicated host is the actual physical machine, that you want to use the entire physical machine rather than one virtual machine running on that one dedicated host. One dedicated host can run multiple virtual machines. So if you have a lot of virtual machines running and you have some licensing, with you, then it is better to go for a dedicated host over here. And on that dedicated host, whatever softwares you install, it is your license, and you are taking care of that license. You are paying for that license. You have always been managing that license in your on-premises. So the only thing you have done is you have shifted your on-premises licenses to a physical machine inside the cloud, and on that physical machine you can run as many virtual machines that you want. So reserved instances, purchase reserved instance means you are very sure that you are reserving an instance, reserving some instances like reserving a room. Okay, so let's say you are going to one way of staying in a hotel is I want to go for 1 day, 2 days, so I pay for it and I book it and pay for it and I come out. So I'm paying, let's say, for 1 day I'm paying, let's say, 3,000. Then for 2 days I'm paying, let's say, 6,000 rupees. So, but let's say the hotel says, if you're very sure that you're going to stay in my hotel for let's say uh, 1 year, you're going to a place and you want to stay in 1 year, then definitely the hotel will say, oh, you're staying in my hotel for 1 year, I will give you 72% discount, so that cost is reducing by 70% because upfront you know that you're going to use that much of the resources, and that is what happens in reserved instances. So anytime you just give me 30 seconds, okay? I don't know why I'm having throat issues. Okay, so I do feel a little better because of that water. So reserved instances, you are booking a reserved instance for a long time. So in cloud, you can book instances for 1 year or 3 years. So depending on whether you're booking for 1 year or 3 years, you will save, and how much you will save until up to 72%. So savings plan is something similar. Again, you have to book for 1 year to 3 years. So what is the difference between that? I will let you know. But before that, there is something known as spot request, right? So what is spot request? So spot request is something like somebody else has booked the room. Okay, so let's say somebody he has booked a room in reserved instance for 1 year. But looking at their frequency, you know that they never stay during the daytime. So that spot is empty for that particular time, and AWS knows that this customer has kept the spot empty. He's booked a hotel room for 1 year, but he's during the daytime he's not there. So what do we do with that spot? And this is where you can go in and say, give me that spot. I want to use that room, but you give me discount. So now here I'm not paying for 1 year or 3 years. I am getting on the spot without any booking and saying this is already somebody else's room. If they come back, I will tell you 1 hour before that you have to empty the room. Do you want the room? Something like that. The agreement is. So and you will be ready for it. You may be ready for it in case if you're if you're not doing anything critical, right? So if you're just let's say so let's say you want to use the room only for doing some writing some story. Okay, you want to write some story, you just want a bench, and so you're using that spot instance only for the time when that actual customer is not there, and you are using that spot, using that instance, and you're getting 90% discount. So where you are supposed to pay for 1 day three, let's say 2000, then suddenly it is reduced to 200 rupees for the spot instance, right? So instead of paying 2000 rupees, I'm paying 200 rupees. So spot instance, that is what spot instances are, and spot instances are never guaranteed to be with you forever. Okay, so the moment you will be informed at least some time before, not 1 hour before or something, but maybe few 15 minutes before, or how something like that. You will be told that now you need to, your instance is going away. So what do you do when the customer is coming back to the room? You were writing some story, and then you apply for another spot instance, right? Somebody else's customer's room you take for, if you get spot instances, or you have to go with the on demand instance, which is on demand instances pay as you go. Means you have to actually book the instance for whatever time you're using, you will be paying for it, or you go for a reserved instance in case if you're going for a 1 year to 3 years. So I hope that costing you have understood the difference between so do I Okay, so one is on demand billing, right? On demand billing is what? Pay as you go. So even in on demand billing, there may be some flat cost for the services that is dwelling uh, inside your AWS. The second type of billing is reserved billing, right? Reserved or savings plan, these are two different types, where you paying for 1 year to 3 years. So you need to commit yourself up, and you can pay in advance some money, little money, or maybe you can pay later. You based on, if you're paying later, then definitely there will be some cost difference. The If you pay total upfront, then it is a maximum saving. And how much do you save in this? 72%. And what is the third type of billing? Is a spot billing, right? So spot billing is your you know is you are is pay for pay and use someone else's instance, and say so in this, what how much savings you're doing? You're saving 90%. So remember that someone else is paying 100%, okay, but you are paying 90%. So this is a profit making business model of AWS. On demand, reserved savings plan, and spot billing. So the question is, what is the difference between reserved and savings plan, right? So I'll So what happens in reserved, you there are different types of instances, right? For example, so what are the types of instances? So so we may have so usually I think it is T1 dot micro, that is what we get, and that is usually one CPU and 1 GB memory, right? And then we have T2 dot large, and then we have M2 dot large with greater memory. Different types of computers, which the difference is what in this different types of computers, either it is processor, either it is memory, network, or storage. These are the four big things that is associated with each of these instance type. In reserved, basically you are specifically going for a particular type of instance. So you are saying I am reserving T1.micro for 1 year. Okay. So that is what it means. You cannot switch between you book for T1.micro and it is like you're saying you want a small room, now you want a big room, and you still want the same savings to be applied. It will not work. Okay. So you have to be careful in this type of booking. Savings plan gives you that flexibility to move around within a particular family. So particular family means T1 and T2 over here. So there may be four types of instances in T type, in M type or something. So but within the family you can move from T1.micro to T2.large, maintaining the same savings plan, which is your 72% billing. You don't have to create a new billing billing contract with AWS. So that is the main difference between reserve plan. So here you're saying I'm going to pay how much per hour, okay, for a particular family of instance. What I'm not sure is whether you can move from T family to M family. I don't think you can move from T family to M family, but within the T family or within the M family you can move, and that is sometimes you want a bigger computer or better computer, then you have to switch sometimes. So savings plan will make sense in that case, especially when you're experimenting. Then you're just moved into the cloud and you are sure that you're going to use the cloud, experimented for 1 year. Maybe you should go with a savings plan in that case. But if you're very sure that this is the type of web server we're using, we're not going to change for the entire year, then you can probably go for the reserved one. So at some point both of them give you up to 72% discount, and spot billing gives you 90% discount. So I hope you all have understood this part.
Yes, sir.
So some of the cost, whenever you're dealing with cloud in your business, whatever company you're working for, they will look out for, they usually look out for direct cost, okay? And so in the accounting world, direct cost would be cost of material and labor, right? How much raw materials you're using to produce a particular, let's say if you're selling soaps, then what is the cost of raw materials, what is the cost of labor, how much salaries you're giving, that is all direct cost. The indirect cost is how much you're paying for the electricity. You cannot bind it to a particular soap, right? you're manufacturing 10,000 soaps and you're paying the electricity bill for the room, which is where this manufacturing is happening. So how can you divide that electricity into the number of soaps? Those are all indirect costs or marketing cost, or all these different types of costs indirectly is also applied. Okay, so in the accounting world, that is the main difference between direct cost. Direct cost is your actual cost, but in order to run that business also you require to spend money, right? So those are all your indirect cost. So in cloud, the direct cost is how much machines are actually you're paying for, how much software licenses, data centers, networks, how much directly you're paying for this. And indirect cost is basically the main indirect cost in cloud is the availability, scalability, performance, productivity, all this multiplies, right? But you cannot really attribute it, or you cannot say because this machine was because of this machine my productivity is saved. It is an indirect cost where your machines are always available because your business is always running, right? So let's say if you're running your own hotel, and let's say your hotel is because of during the rainy season, there's a kind of a season when tourists are not coming or something, that in that season your business is down, so there's a downtime, so you are losing money for that particular time. But when you move to the cloud, you see that, oh, it is 24 hours, somebody is using my machine. Because when let's say for example, when one part of the world is not using the machine, some other part of the world is using, you can be, your machines can be transferred to some other part of the world, and they can use the machine. And the thing is, in cloud, machines never stop, machines do not wear out. If you have a proper architecture in place of with something like high availability, performance checks and everything, and your anti all these attacks or security attacks that you get, you if you have everything in place, the downtime is reduced. And because the downtime is reduced, the savings, it is directly attributed to how much more work you can do in that uptime, right? And that is the savings. But can you directly calculate it? No, you cannot directly calculate it. You can calculate machine cost. Okay, I'm pay as you pay, paying for a reserved instance $10 every month, something like that. So I hope you understood direct cost versus indirect cost. So how do you calculate return of investment? Return of investment is what? The savings that you're going to get once you have started using cloud. Before you start using the cloud, total cost of ownership comes. After you start using cloud, return of investment comes into place. Okay. So how much am I actually saving? Did I do a good decision moving to the cloud, right? So here he says the hard return of investment would be return on direct cost for sure. You don't have to buy the machine, you don't have to buy the network. So definitely that direct cost is gone away. No, the maintenance cost is gone away, and definitely the electricity cost is gone away. All the infrastructure cost is gone away. So even though what is an indirect cost over here in the accounting world for electricity, it is gone into hard ROI over here. You have saved all that money over here. Okay. What is soft ROI? Soft ROI is basically all the downtime that could have happened in your on premises. All the security, let's say there was a, the security was not properly, could not be implemented properly in on premises, but you're getting the best of best standards in cloud, and because of that you were able to prevent lot of attacks, and you were always the cloud was working for you on your behalf because you put things into place. It is the best of best services, best of best softwares, upgrades, reduced costs. So definitely if less attacks are there, then the downtime is less, right? For the business won't go down that easily. And you're always having a DR solution, some kind of a backup strategy where, in case if one goes down, the other one comes up. So your business is always moving on, and there is more profit, because of that, more money done. And you are no longer focused on solving problems of technical problems as far as machines are down or something, right? Infrastructure problems are not, you're not focusing on infrastructure problem, you're focusing on what new features you want to add into the software, to, so let's say you're having a banking software, then what is what you can make online, those are the things you can spend more time on. So that is all the benefits are known as soft ROIs. So this slide speaks to you about when you say something is free, you have to, it is not, you have to know what type of services. Some services are always free. Whether you are taking a free tier, whether you are having a paid account or whatever. So trusted advisor, there are 8 types of checks which are free for you always, but there are totally 36 in a high category level. There are 36 checks which your AWS will not give it to you for free. For that you need to go with the appropriate support plan. Definitely you need to go with the enterprise plan or business plan in order to have those checks in place. So Shield is one of the security services in AWS. So there are 2 types of services: Shield, AWS Shield Standard, and AWS Shield Advanced. So AWS Shield Standard will help you with basic security services. I don't remember exactly. Let me see if I can find. So it says here, right, AWS Shield addresses DDoS attacks. Means it tries to prevent DDoS attacks at the network layer and transport layer. So there are your entire when the two machines are communicating, they're communicating on 7 different layers. Okay, so and so 2 of the layers, so that is called your OSI, right? Even I forgot about it. But 2 of those layers out of the 7 layers are network layer and transport layer. And in Advanced Shield, additionally, what happens? It tries to protect your EC2, CloudFront, Global Accelerator, Route 53. So there are more protection for your services. So especially which is public facing. Public facing means your machine is exposed to the public. CloudFront is exposed to the public. Route 53 is your DNS service, right? You can create your, you can have a website name www.jamesdesouza.com and register it at Route 53, and Route 53 will host that website for you. And so it is public facing, and the moment it is public facing, there can be attacks. And if you want to be protected from all types of advanced attacks that is constantly going on in the world, and definitely depending on the criticality of your business, you should be going for Advanced Shield, because Advanced Shield is your total protection. And AWS Shield will give you some level of DDoS protection at network layer and transport layer. So, and Advanced Shield will definitely give you protection at every layer. Means every layer it will protect your application layer, your session layer, then your network layer, your transport layer, and all the layers right down. Definitely, as the moment you get to the down to the level of physical layer anyway, AWS is responsible. Okay, so you are not responsible for the AWS physical layer. So you are only creating virtual machines on the top of physical layers. So all these layers, but definitely will be protected for you. And so Shield, AWS Shield is for network layer protection and transport layer protection as far as DDoS attack is concerned. So Shield standard comes always free, so remember that. And short-term free trial is something like use this service for 3 months, let's say, or use this service for 1 month. So something similar that came up recently was AWS Health Lake, right? It was a new you can say medical technology service that was introduced, and they offered it for one month. And even I had used it, and by mistake I did something and I got charged, and then they reverted back. But it was they did offer that service for 1 month. So that is called free trial. and 12 months free is your normal free tier account. So in this you don't get everything free forever or something, you know, there is a certain limit. On S3 you may be able to create so much of storage space, you know, you can lambda, if you're using, you can call lambda function maybe only for 10,000 times. So there will be a limit on how much you can use within the free tier, but it is uh, uh, I have not seen 12 months free. I have seen 1 month free now. They have, I think, removed this 12 months free. But whether it is 12 months or 1 month, you have to remember that all these services have a certain limit and how much you can use, and you have to be careful. You need to constantly monitor basically. So with that, we have kind of covered a lot of stuff in billing now, and we can see if we can do the knowledge check. Did I stop recording? The recording is going on. Okay, so I'll be asking you questions. Okay, this is taking time. Okay, so while this um, why this side fellow comes up, I don't know. Unnecessarily, it's occupying the space. Can I? Okay, this is better. But Okay, the so this question, let's start. Anuj, okay. Okay, Anuj, try to answer this question. For certain services like Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud and Amazon Relational Database Services, you can invest in reserved capacity. What are the options available for reserved instances? Nuri, Duri, Ori, Puri, Muri. Three, choose three.
Sir, it's AURI, PURI, and NURI.
AURI,
PU
okay, and
and NU.
okay. So what is NURI?
Sir, I don't know the full form.
I can guess this is no upfront reserved instance. This
Yes,
is
yes,
this
yes.
is all upfront reserved instance. This is partial upfront reserved instance. So all upfront means I'm booking a reserved instance for 1 year. I'm paying the entire money upfront. First only I'm paying. So if I'm buying a house, let's say I'll pay. Let's say buy the house is costing, let's say 10 lakhs. Then I will pay 10 lakhs right in advance, entire amount, all upfront. Partial upfront means I'm paying only 20, maybe 1 lakh now, and the rest later. And no upfront means I'm not paying anything now, but I'll pay every month starting from the end of the month. So let's see if you're right. So you're right. Reserved instances are available in ORI, all upfront, no upfront, and partial upfront. Okay. Okay. So the next question is for Croydon. Okay. So Croydon, try to answer this question. Where can a customer go to get more details about Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud billing activity that took place 3 months ago? Should they go to AWS CloudTrail logs stored in Amazon Simple Storage Service? So, so remember it's called billing, okay? So you have to look for bills. AWS Cost Explorer, AWS EC2 dashboard, AWS Trusted Advisor dashboard. Which answer is right?
AWS Cost Explorer.
Yes. So remember CloudTrail is giving you also a trail of activities like who has accessed this machine, which IP address I did access that machine. But you are specifically not looking for that activity. You're looking for billing activity. Billing activity is definitely in the Cost Explorer. Okay. So next question is for Deepak. True or false? To receive the discounted rate associated with reserved instance, you must pay a full upfront payment for the term of the agreement. Is it true or is it false? Deepak, you're there? Okay, okay, Deepak is not there. Okay, Kunal is. Kunal, can you answer this question?
So this is true.
This is not. It is not must. Okay, there are different types of upfront payments. No upfront, partial upfront,
All up front.
all upfront. So this is not must. You are not forced to pay full upfront. So let's say true it is, and it will tell you it is wrong. Sorry, that is not correct. To receive the discounted rate associated with reserved instance, you do not need to make the full upfront payment. So the answer is false.
Okay.
Okay. Next question is for Pranav. There is no charge for which of the following: compute charges, storage charges, inbound data transfer with some exceptions, outbound data transfer between services within the same AWS region. Which two of them there will be no charge?
Data transfer between services within the same AWS region,
Okay.
and outbound, inbound data transfer with some exceptions. Okay, so I think these are the two.
Yeah, so this is correct. If some data is coming inside AWS, no charges. If some data you're outbound means it is going out, which means you are downloading something. Like you're visiting when you visit a website, you're downloading the website actually onto your box. So that is outbound. But when you want to submit some data back, you want to save some data, whatever shopping you've done, you want to save it in your server, then it becomes inbound for the other side. Okay, so inbound data transfer is usually not charged, and data transfer, if it till then, like say S3 Lambda is calling S3 or SNS is calling, we had this situation, right, where status trigger action architecture was put in place. So SNS was getting triggered based on some status, and that trigger was invoking Lambda function. So if all these three, so there was some communication happening between these services, but if it was happening within the same region, the data, you will not be charged for the data that is traveling between the services. So there is no charges for that. So this answer should be right. You have got it. There is no charge for inbound data transfer, with some exceptions for data transfer between services. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Next question is for Priscilla. What are the 4 support plans offered by AWS Support? Uh, Basic Developer Business Enterprise, Basic Startup Business Enterprise, Free, Bronze, Silver, Gold, all support is free. Which are the 4 plans available in AWS?
So the first one, basic, developer, business, enterprise.
Yes, that is right. Okay. So next question is for Tuba. What AWS tool compares the cost of running your application in an on-premises data center to AWS? It compares the cost, okay? Remember this, of running your application in on-premises versus AWS. Is it AWS billing dashboard? Is it AWS cost usage report? Is it total cost of ownership calculator? Is it AWS simply monthly calculator?
So for whom this question is for?
This is for Tuba. Tuba, you're there? Okay. Shweta, can you? No problem. Total cost of ownership. Yeah, that is correct. That's correct. Total cost of an ownership calculator compares the cost of running your application in on-premises versus AWS. Okay, next question is for Shweta. As AWS grows, the cost of doing business is reduced and savings are passed back to the customers with lower pricing. What is this optimization called? Is it called expenditure awareness? Is it called matching supply and demand? Is it called economies of scale? Is it called EC2 right sizing? Shweta, you there? Eh, okay, I think. Okay. So cost is reducing and saving is whenever the cost is reducing, the savings is passed to the customer. So when does the cost reduce? When more customers are there, right? So cost is of running the business reduces, and the savings is given back to the customer with lower pricing. What is this business model called? Economies. Okay, Tuba is answer. So I have already spoken about economies of scale, right? So that is correct. As AWS grows, the general cost of doing business is reduced and savings are passed back to the customer due to economies of scale. In India, we have 1 billion population. Everybody can buy a 1 rupee thing. Okay, so when you sell something for 1 rupee, you are looking at a bigger economy. You are looking at a scaled economy, and you are looking at a reduced cost of running the business. Okay, so next question. So Shweta, okay, you have answered economics. Yeah, you're right. Next question is for, we are back up, Anuj. Okay, true or false? AWS offers a variety of services at no charge. For example, VPC, IAM, billing, Beanstalk, automatic scaling, ops work, CloudFormation. However, you might be charged for other AWS services that you use in conjunction with other services. Is it true or is it false?
Yes, sir. True.
True, that is correct. So when you're creating a VPC, you are just defining what you want to, what networks you want to use. When you're defining an IAM, you're just defining a set of users that you want to control access to. When you're consolidated, okay, we did not do consolidated billing. We missed out on this, such an important part. Consolidated billing is basically you can create, you can bring, let's say in your organization there are 10 people, they can have their own account, but you can add those accounts under your account using AWS organizations, and you will, and AWS, if you have those accounts under your account, then you will be billed, not them. So you will see the billing, and you can also see the account wise billing. We have already seen an account wise billing, and that is called a consolidated billing. I'm not sure if I can see that. I've closed it. Can I open this here? So AWS organization. So this is, they usually ask 1 or 2 questions on this. So when you're running a company and where you want to give access to everyone, but yet you want to see who is using how much, or you want to group them under a particular department, you can do all this using organizations. So you have a better control over the cost, and you can take away the access also at the organization level by applying policies. So you can apply policy for a particular department, for a particular account. Some accounts you can give admin access. So all that magic can be done in AWS organizations. Anyway, so the answer is true. So in all these services, what happens? You're just defining. But when you actually create a machine, then you are using this VPC with the EC2 service. The EC2 is created inside the AWS, right? And who is using? IAM user is using. So you are charged for the EC2 services then in conjunction with these services. So machines cannot be created without a VPC, right? So all of these services, Beanstalk, will be useless unless there is a website running. So the moment and for the website to run, definitely you need to create a machine, and you need to have a machine, and the moment the machine is created, your charges begin. So it is always in conjunction with other services that this that you will see the charges for VPC or whatever, so as such it is free, but you are mainly charged for the machines or the resources that you're creating using these services. Okay, so next question is for Croydon. When are free data transfers applicable? The question, see, remember free, okay? So free data transfer is applicable across AWS. So you need to choose two. Free inbound data transfer across all AWS services in all regions. Free outbound data transfer across all AWS services in all regions. Free inbound data transfer for Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud instances. Free outbound data transfer between AWS services within the same region. So which two are free?
I guess it's second and third.
Yeah. So this is not right. You cannot be when the data is moving outbound one region to another region. If you cross the region like Mumbai to Singapore, data is traveling a long distance. You will be charged for it. Okay. So this answer is not right. Inbound is right. So free inbound data transfer for Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud instance means one instance is there. Maybe my web server is running there, and I'm receiving the data. So maybe I'm having a browser which I'm trying to access the website which is running on my EC2. For EC2, it is inbound. So that charges won't be there. But the moment I share, I kind of send my index.html or my HTML files back to the browser, that becomes outbound and that will be charged. But this is free inbound, right? So inbound is definitely free for a particular service. And if I am sending outbound data between two services within the same region, so as I told you, SNS is sending us notification to Lambda, and Lambda then runs. So that data request which is sent between the two services within the same region, no charges. So even if it is outbound. So the answer is the last two. Okay, so Sweta was right on that. And next question is for Kunal. True or false? Unlimited services are available within the free tier to new customers for 12 months following their AWS sign-up date. So remember, unlimited. So is it true or is it false?
So it's false.
Yes, even I think it is false. So that is correct. Even if it is under free tier, you will have a limit how much you can use one particular set of services. Okay, so this quiz is done, and this is the organization. So it's I was talking about AWS organization, right? So here I have a root account. Under this I have D'Souza38gmail.com account, and I can uh, you know how do we create it? I can send invitations over here in AWS organization. So I can say invite AWS account. So I will say let's say tuba at gmail.com, something like that. One email I give this. Second email, let's say I give priscilla at gmail.com. So something like that. I can keep on sending invitations to other accounts which will use my account actually, and I will I will be billed and I will see how much they're using under my account. So this is one way of um, managing an organization. So organization is like a company, right? So if you because you're not going to charge your employees, right, for sure. So if you want to still give them access, you can control by first creating an organization over here. And so this is the organization ID over here, means under this ID the root account will be built. Okay, remember this. And so whatever billing you're getting, it is a consolidated bill, means a sum total of everything. So this I've added for test, just I was testing it. Why it is so I think I can create only one organization. I'm not sure about that. It's not allowing me to create any new organization. But here if you see, I can create new organization, and I can what do we do? Not allowing me to select anything. But I hope you understood what AWS organization is. Okay, it is like a organization chart that you're creating, and you're controlling the billing for everyone using one root account. So now what we will do is we will go with more questions. How many questions we have? Okay, very few questions, maybe 10 or something. Okay, how do we see this bigger? Okay, so this question is for Kunal, answered Pranav. A company has multiple AWS accounts and wants to simplify and consolidate its billing process. Which AWS service will achieve this? AWS Cost Usage Report, AWS Organization, AWS Cost Explorer, AWS Budgets.
A company has multiple AWS accounts and choose this billing process. AWS budgets.
No,
No, no. So,
the answer is B. I just now I told you, no?
okay.
AWS Organization. There are multiple employees in your company, means each employee has got a separate account, but you cannot, they cannot have a separate bill. Each employee cannot have a separate bill. No, all those bills have to come to you for the company. So company creates an organization inside the AWS organization and adds these accounts. It sends invitation to all his employees to join this account, and you can use the AWS services. So the correct answer is AWS organizations. Okay, next question is for Priscilla. What AWS feature enables you to estimate cost savings when using AWS, offers a detailed set of reports, and allows you to modify expectations to best meet your business needs? So remember the word estimate. Is it trusted advisor, free usage tier, simple monthly calculator, or TCO calculator?
Simple monthly calculator.
That is correct. So monthly calculator is used to estimate, and TCO calculator is used to compare the cost. Okay. Okay. So the next question is for Tuba. Which AWS service can a customer use to set up an alert notification when the account is approaching a particular dollar amount? Is it cost and usage report? Is it budgets? Is it cost explorer, or is it trusted advisor? So I need an alert, okay? Remember, when some amount is reached, billing amount. AWS budget, that is correct. That is the right answer. Okay, so the next question is for Shweta. Which of the following cost-effective support plans features unlimited customer side contacts and unlimited support cases? Choose two. Which plan you have to go for? Unlimited customer side contacts and unlimited support cases. Is it basic, enterprise, developer, business, standard? Which two you will go for? If you want unlimited services, then
Sir, one is enterprise
hmm,
and business.
yes. So that is the correct answer. You basically go for the best plan, no? If you want unlimited everything, no limit for you, then you go for the best plan. And best plan is definitely best of best is enterprise. After enterprise is business. So that is the right answer. Okay, so next question is for, so we are back up. Anuj, what is the specific attribute of the AWS pricing model? I even say when you reserve 12 months free, free trial, always free.
When is this? Which is a specific attribute of AWS pricing model? Sir, it was mentioned in that video 12 months free, but अभी नहीं है शायद.
हाँ
जो
नहीं
tutorials
okay. Oh, this answer I'm not sure. Let me see what they mentioned. I think it is the first one. Save when you reserve. That is an attribute.
So if the question would be what are the advantages of using AWS, then it might be 12 months free, right?
No, the question for this, all these three types are a different type of free services. If the question was what are the different type of free services available in AWS, definitely these three would come in that: 12 months free, free trial, and always free. But here it is saying what is that attribute that is applied in the pricing model. I think the answer is it cannot be one of this, right? It has to be this first one. I think that is only odd man out over here. All these three things have something in common. They are all free services, but and that attribute is applicable everywhere. But this is an attribute definitely we are talking about. I feel save when you reserve. If you reserve for something for 1 year, you save. That is an attribute I feel. And but let's see if that is the right answer. Even I get confused. Okay, so I think it is in 6, in question number, okay, the question number is 21. Okay, why it is not opening? Okay, this is a different question. Maybe it is number 5. Where is number 5? Yeah, here it is. So which is the specific attribute of, the correct answer is save when you reserve. So I was right. Okay, so I hope you'll remember this in case if it comes in the exam. Okay, so next question is for Croydon. Okay, what AWS forecasting tool can be used to view charts of spending data for up to past 12 months? Can you use CloudTrail, to see spending data for past 12 months, um, guard duty, config, or cost explorer, and view charts means graphical.
Sir, I didn't get the question.
What AWS forecasting tool? Forecast means what is going to, you're forecasting something, right? It is going to rain today, it is not going to rain today. Will you have more bills this month, or will you have more sales this month? It is forecasting. So what forecasting tool can you use to view charts? View charts means bar graph, tree graph, something like that. Or chart for what? Spending data. So something related to cost for up to past 12 months. If past 12 months, if I tell I'm spending $100 every month, then definitely I can forecast in the future that I'm going to spend $100, right? So what tool can be used to do that? So these are the different services, right? Different tools in the AWS. There's CloudTrail, Cloud Guard Duty, Config, and Cost Explorer. Which of them is related to spending data view of 12 months as a chart?
It should be AWS CloudTrail.
No, that answer is wrong. Cost Explorer. So Shweta is right. It is Cost Explorer. So there are three things in billing, right? Cost Explorer, budgets, and reports, usage reports. And these are the three things. Cost Explorer gives you a graphical view of your expenditures, with which you can forecast. And then AWS usage reports gives you can create reports in that based on whatever you want to create report for, billing or whatever you want to look out for. And the third thing is budget, right? Budget is to control your expenditure. So Cost Explorer is the right answer. Okay, next question is for Kunal. Which AWS service can be used to generate alerts based on an estimated monthly bill? So after generate an alert means trigger it. Okay, so what can trigger it from here? AWS
Sir,
so okay,
Amazon CloudWatch.
that is right. So CloudWatch basically it is like your SNS only. Okay, so anytime anybody, all these services they can report to CloudWatch. The config can say I did something, X-Ray can say I did something, CloudTrail can say I did something, and CloudWatch is somebody who is keeping a track of a log of every activity if you have configured for it. If you have told CloudWatch to watch out for these changes, for the status, then CloudWatch will make a note of that. So it is like a SNS service only. So CloudWatch then in turn can trigger something. It can generate an alert or it can do anything. So your AWS billing can be looking out for AWS CloudWatch. So your billing can be connected to your CloudWatch. In fact, any services can be connected to CloudWatch. So something happens in CloudWatch, you immediately trigger something on the other end. Okay. So next question is for Pranav. A telecommunication company has hired you as a consultant to develop a business case for moving its IT application and infrastructure to AWS. The company's leadership understands the agility value of the cloud, but the finance group is not interested in shifting capital expense to operating expense due to the company's tax structure. What will you include in the business case to attempt to satisfy everyone at the company? Will you show them how infrastructure is so elastic to avoid waste? Will you show the company the TCO value of moving to an operating expense model? Will you suggest that the company make reserved instance purchases and capitalize them, or will you suggest that company wait to migrate to AWS until the current infrastructure is fully depreciated? So remember, the company wants to move application and infrastructure to where? To AWS. The leadership says it is very agile, means it is quickly you can launch machines. I know that, but finance is saying, "Arey, we have already spent so much on machines, capital expense. Now you want to go to operating expense, and all this tax problem is there, and this problem is there, that problem is there." The finance team is saying, "We cannot, it is too complicated financially." So what are you? So they feel the cost is definitely going to increase. So you have to show them the cost is going to reduce. So what are you going to show them? So you have not yet moved to the cloud as yet. So what is that one thing that we always show before we move to the cloud? Pranav, you're there? Okay. Okay, Shweta says third option. Suggests that a company make reserved instance purchases and capitalize them. They have not yet moved. So this answer is wrong. Third option is wrong. The correct answer is second one. Show the company the total cost of ownership value, which is a comparison cost. This much you're spending in the company, $100. There in the cloud you're spending $90, $20 over the period of 1 year. Show them the savings of $80, over the period of time. And that is when finance guy will not have an answer when you show them the savings. Okay, so that is what you need to show. That is the right answer. The correct answer is number 2. Okay, so the next question is for Priscilla. How does AWS charge for AWS Lambda usage once the free tier has been exceeded? Does it charge by the time it takes for Lambda function to execute, or does it charge by the number of versions of specific Lambda function, by the number of requests made for the given Lambda function, or by the programming, the language that you're using for Lambda function, or by the total number of Lambda functions in AWS account? So you have to choose 2.
So the first one, by the time it takes for the lambda function to execute, and maybe the last one, by the total number of lambda functions in an AWS account.
So the first one you are right, the second one you are not right. The first one says the time taken to execute. So we have to know that only when it is executed, then only it is charged. Only when the program is running, then only it is charged, and for that much time only. Now I may have totally 100 functions in Lambda functions. I must have written 100 programs. But will I be charged for that having that program? No. Only when I'm running the program. I may be just running 2 programs at a time. So I will always be charged for the running programs, not for the total. I can write thousands of programs in Lambda. It is a serverless. It is not creating any machine for me when it is not running. It will only become active when I'm running something. It will only create a machine, only run the Java function only when it is running. So the third option is number of request means you are triggering an action over here. Somebody is calling a Lambda function, that means. And that is when you are definitely going to get charged. If somebody is calling a Lambda function, means Lambda function is going to get triggered. Lambda function get triggered means Lambda function is going to run and they're going to be charged. So the correct answer is number 1 and number 3. So total number of Lambda functions can be there, but till then nobody is calling that Lambda function, no request is coming to it, it is not going to be charged. Okay, so next question is for Tuba. Which AWS service or feature allows a company to visualize, visualize means graph, understand and manage AWS cost usage over time. So visualize is a keyword, graphs, so AWS budgets, cost explorer, organizations, consolidated billing. So which will help you visualize? Consolidated billing, no. Consolidated billing does not let you see a graph. It consolidates the bills for all your employees that is
Sir,
registered under AWS
AWS budget
organization.
would be the right answer.
AWS
AWS
budget
budget.
is the wrong answer because AWS budget helps you to take actions based on the budget that you have set for yourself. It doesn't let you visualize. Visualize means see, and see in the kind of graphs. And what is showing graphs out of these four? What is showing graphs? Your explorer is your, I told you, right? Explorer is equal to graphs, explorer is equal to visualize. You're seeing that graph, we saw a bar graph, right, where you're seeing in a graphical format. So your AWS cost explorer is an example of it. Just like Windows Explorer shows you a tree graph of all your files, cost explorer shows you a graph of all your cost over the period of time. So the correct answer is number 2, AWS cost explorer. Okay, so we